Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Lebick. Joining me for this episode is Mike Bradley.
Hello. It's been a long time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to start with. Surprise, we're not dead. The podcast is still here. I know I brought this up before, but, recording episodes have been few and far between. I take full responsibility and blame for that. So we're still got some stuff in the pipeline that we are going to probably try to record soon. Episodes still might seem sporadic, but keep following us. Hopefully you'll get the notifications when stuff is posted, and you'll be able to see it and catch up. So hopefully you've found this one just from some sort of notification or follow that you've got. So we got this one coming. We've been gearing up for Deadpool and Wolverine, which some of us have seen, so that'll probably be the next one out after this, which obviously was going to actually be the next episode we were going to record, and then Marvel held their San Diego Comic-Con panel over the weekend. Started making some headlines. Some seem a bit questionable. After talking with some of the guys, we felt like we need to get some stuff off our chest about this. So, lucky for Mike, he was the only one available on such short notice to be able to record, so here we are.
Yeah, and it's very short notice. This was, yesterday this got announced?
Yeah,
like last night, very late last night, too, because I want to say it was probably 9, 10 o'clock our time. Would have been earlier for them, and we were wanting to talk about this enough that we weren't willing to wait for other people to have time. This was an urgent matter to speak about.
We summoned the podcast button. It's like the big red phone where I call everybody up like Batman.
Super Friends.
So yeah, that's true. Yeah. The group of us have a Discord, and I very rarely tag everybody in the Discord. Like, hey, something important is happening. I ran the button for this one. I tagged everybody. I was like, who's available? We got shit to talk about. So Mike answered the call.
It's been a while since the MCU had something big enough to talk about. That it was enough of a prompt to get us together quickly like that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I think Deadpool and Wolverine 3, or Deadpool 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, whatever you want to call it, I feel like that's going to get everybody together too. I feel like we got a lot to say about that.
Well, yeah, our plan, I guess, was to record that this week. I think me, you, and Josh are probably the only ones that's seeing it. I don't think it's on Ian's radar, really.
No, definitely not Ian. I think Andy said he was going to try to, but he wasn't sure.
So behind the scenes, Andy was trying to, he told me he got sick this weekend, so he actually didn't get out. So I don't know if he will get a chance to see it if we try to record this week. So depending if we want to, so again, just inside baseball for all the listeners, it's depending on if we want to wait for Andy to see it or if we just want to record with who've seen it so far and go from there. So we'll keep you posted. It'll go up whenever we're done. It may be delayed a week depending on if we're waiting. If not, you might see it sooner rather than later. We'll see what happens.
No offense, Andy. I want to talk about it soon while it's fresh. But I will go see it again if we have to wait. So
I know if we delay it a week, I might have to try to get out and see it a second time because I've only seen it once so far. So
I genuinely might anyways. I haven't felt that way about a movie in a while, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'm sure there are some other things that we could be talking about out of San Diego Comic-Con. All we're going to focus on is the Marvel panel from Saturday night. And honestly, probably not even the majority of the panel, just the end chunk of the panel. I will kind of run through what they talked about quickly, just so we have some bullet point stuff, but the meat of what we want to talk about is at the end. So the panel covered their upcoming movies. They opened it talking about, hey, we're just going to cover 3 movies for 2025, which includes Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four. Captain America: Brave New World comes out February 14th, 2025. Thunderbolts with an asterisk. They're making it a point that there's an asterisk there by Thunderbolts, so I would not be surprised if the name changes before the movie comes out and they're holding something back.
So
we'll see.
I can give you a little context on that. They actually said you need to see the movie to see why there's an asterisk. So okay. It is there intentionally, and it is part of something. They wouldn't say why, but they did say that it's there, and you're going to have to watch the movie to find out why it's there.
Okay. I didn't know if they'd keep that as part of the title, or after Brave New World, something happens and the title will change prior to the movie.
They may be going that route. But from what they said and what they confirmed at the panel as well with the Brave New World stuff, I don't know if you got to see all of that. But Harrison Ford coming up on stage as Thunderbolt Ross, they talked about oh yeah, Thunderbolt Ross and Thunderbolts. They're actually not related in any way, but they were talking about that.
Yeah.
But I guess, you'll see Brave New World, audience, when you see it next year. If you see any of the trailers, I'm sure you'll start to get an idea of the big deal. Evidently, the audience got shown a nice scene of Harrison Ford, let's say, in action, is what it sounded like from what they were talking about. So you'll get to see that later.
Yeah.
And you'll find out that. But I don't think, unless there's going to be some play in interaction with that they're actually going to change the title. Unless they were just toying with the audience. It sounded like it's part of the plot in some way.
Okay. My gut reaction was like maybe they changed the title to like Dark Avengers or something prior to. Is the only other thing I could think maybe they'd flip it. But if you're marketing your movie as one name for so long and then 3 months before release you change the name, seems really stupid. So we'll see if it's probably smarter to just at this point stick with Thunderbolts, but we'll see. But yeah, Captain America Brave New World, February 14th, 2025. Thunderbolts right now, May 5th, 2025. And Fantastic Four is the third movie for 2025 on July 25th, which now has a title, The Fantastic Four First Steps. So we'll see what happens there. That's still supposed to be a period piece. I didn't watch a lot of what... there is a video online that shows you like some of the panel, and they have like interviews with the cast and talking a little bit about the films. I didn't watch a lot of it. I skipped around to sort of where I wanted to, which was, again, sort of the end of the show. So I know they talked about Fantastic Four. I think the only cool thing I kind of saw was they debuted the Fantastic Car, which looked kind of cool.
I mean, yeah, it looked like maybe a prop reference they used before they're going to, digitally make it look proper for the film.
Yeah. But it's a flying car, so it looked fucking cool. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But to end their panel, so they talked about 2 upcoming Avengers movies. Now, before we talk about this year, if you flash back to San Diego Comic-Con from 2022, Marvel talked about these same 2 Avengers movies. It was meant to be Avengers: The Kang Dynasty in May of 2025, followed by Avengers: Secret Wars in November of 2025. Now, Kang Dynasty meant to be directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi. November of 2023, Cretton backed out to focus on other Marvel projects that he's involved in, including Wonder Man show for Disney Plus, and still trying to work through Shang-Chi 2. So that is supposedly still happening as far as I know.
Did they cast Wonder Man yet? And is it Nathan Fillion, please?
Is not Nathan Fillion.
Shit.
I think they did cast him, and I don't remember who they put. Because the article I read that said Cretton backed out was from November of 2023, so at that time they didn't have a cast, so I didn't follow the Wonder Man thread to see who they have, but I'm almost positive they do have someone picked for that.
Oh, I think
they're shooting it now, so they have to have somebody.
Okay. I was going to say, I guess Nathan Fillion already technically is in the MCU now after Guardians 3 as a bit character in that movie.
Well, plus he's shooting Superman stuff, so if they're shooting Wonder Man now, it's not going to be...
Well, it's not him. You just said like it would be. It would have been news if they finally did that, but it's fine.
And then following November 2023, again in December of 2023, the actor that played Kang, Jonathan Majors, was found guilty of harassment and assault of an ex-girlfriend. So shortly after that, Marvel dropped his ass. So that left the next big arc for Marvel movies and shows that they seem to be gearing up for. The big showdown with Kang the Conqueror is the next big bad. It left a very big question mark after all of that. So would Marvel Studios stick to their guns, maybe just stick with the character recast, or change their roadmap? We have that answer now. So if we come back to present day, Marvel panel, Comic-Con 2024, Kevin Feige confirmed who would direct the next 2 Avengers movies. So to my actual surprise, he brought Joe and Anthony Russo on stage to confirm that they are directing the next 2 Avengers movies. So this is the duo that did Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So to say that these guys have a track record for excellent Marvel movies, I think is a very, very big understatement, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't think anybody else was even close to their, track record at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else has directed 4 of the movies. I think Favreau did, 2? And
yes.
I think there's a few that have done 2. But I don't think...
Peyton Reed did 3.
James Gunn did 3.
Yeah, and Peyton Reed did all 3 Ant-Man movies.
Yeah. And that's not a great track record. That's a okay track record. I'd say the Guardians track record's great, but it's not up to what the Russo brothers have done.
Yeah, I think the Russos have definitely some of my favorite movies in the 4 that they've done. So the first movie that they talked about that they were going to be involved in is Avengers Secret Wars. So again, that is the same one they announced 2 years ago. The date's different. It will now come out in May of 2027. And this movie, I believe, is meant to conclude the multiverse saga that's going on in the MCU.
Which, that makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah.
Because that means we have 3 more years of the multiverse, but continue.
Yeah. Now, past interviews with Joe and Anthony Russo, they have talked about their love for Secret Wars. Like, that story, that arc in the comics, that was, like, the reason they got into comics and loved the characters. And so when it was announced back in 2022, I thought maybe they'd come back for that one. I was expecting maybe a different director for the Kang Dynasty, and then we'd end with Russo's coming back for Secret Wars. I also kind of have questions about the Secret Wars story, which maybe we can get into a little bit later. But so the second Avengers movie that they announced that is no longer called the Kang Dynasty, it is now called Avengers Doomsday. It's set to release May of 2026, so a year before Secret Wars. And really, I think the biggest reveal around this one is the person that will be playing Victor Von Doom. And they revealed that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to the MCU as Victor Von Doom.
I will clarify. They didn't say Victor. They said Dr. Doom. They didn't say Victor.
The Russos said twice on stage, Victor Von Doom.
Wait, okay. I'll accept that. I thought they had
I
said
watched
Doctor.
it again right before this to see how they named the character. And they specifically said Victor Von Doom.
Okay. Gotcha.
So this is the whole fucking reason that sparked this reason to record is this casting right here. So, Mike, I feel like you're sort of on the same page with me just based on how we were trading text messages and stuff, but gut reaction to this reveal, what do you think of RDJ coming back to the MCU? Not only coming back, but playing Victor Von Doom.
So here's the thing. This feels like they hit the panic button, and they were like, we need the Russos and Robert Downey Jr. back to save what's going on.
Yeah.
Because they've been floundering, their stories have been disjointed as most multiverse stories end up. And you have, I feel like, a bit of an inability from modern audiences to really keep up and follow what's going on. And it has felt disjointed. It has felt not great for this whole phase. It's been, what the hell's going on? And then they get thrown the curveball with whatever they had planned. Now, fucking their Kang is no longer usable. So they have to either pivot away from a major character who, I don't care what you want to say about him as a man, was doing a fantastic job as the character. His acting was great. Just so happens he's a shitty human being that they don't want to work with anymore. It's unfortunate that it happened that way and screwed up whatever plans they did have. So I'm not going to throw the 100% blame on them. But I'll throw a bit of blame and say, boy, you guys could have done a better job of getting this all set up and then not having to come to press the panic button. You know, and that feels like what this is. Now, will I say that I'm not interested to see what Robert Downey Jr. can do as Victor Von Doom? Absolutely not. Don't get me wrong. Like, if he had never been in the MCU, I'd be thrilled to see him cast as Doom. The fact that he was means it's going to be multiverse shenanigans. To me, that's the only explanation that they can pull for this shit, is there's another actor they have in mind to be the real Doom. But this is going to be their multiverse answer of who is Doom, and we'll see the real Doom perhaps in Secret Wars.
That was gonna be one of my questions, is do you think we'll get a quote unquote proper Doom later? Basically like recast Doom for a later phase. Because I think what they said was they confirmed RDJ's Dr. Doom would be in both Avengers movies.
I
in
honestly,
Doomsday and Secret Wars.
given the name Doomsday, I honestly believe that we may see this may be a bait casting. This may be a bait scenario where we might see 6 Dooms from different multiverses in Doomsday.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that's what it's going to be. I'm saying it's possible because we're in this multiverse world where nothing matters. You know what I mean? Like, it all matters, but you don't have to commit to anything
Yeah.
because of it. And that's part of the reason that multiverses aren't the best storylines usually. Very, very rarely do you get a good quality multiverse storyline that comes out the way like Flashpoint did in the comics, where it all kind of ties up and makes sense well together and everything like that. And it's actually told really well. That's so rare. Most of the time they try to do this, it ends up like this, where it's like, what are the stakes? Because is there stakes? We can just replace every character with a different version of them from another universe.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible that there's more than one Doom that we're going to see in both of those movies. I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen, but I think, yes, he's going to be from some other universe. Figures out a way into ours, into, I guess part of what they've talked about is how, like, 616 is, like, the prime or the sacred timeline or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
With that being the case, I think you run into this version of Victor Von Doom coming into our, or whatever you want to call it, into the prime or sacred timeline, whatever, finding his way in there. I don't know how they're going to play it or anything like that, but my guess is that the events in Doomsday are obviously going to spark whatever ends up happening in Secret Wars. Like, it's going to give them the lead in to Secret Wars in some way. Again, I won't spoil what may happen there for people that haven't read the Secret Wars comics. If you haven't, get out there, do it. They're amazing. I honestly don't know which version of Secret Wars they're going to go to, because there's 2 of them out there.
That's okay. So that's something we'll spin back to, because that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah, I think we're going to the original. The way that the Russos talked about loving it so much is one of their favorites from so long. Where, because, like, that would be from maybe not their childhood. They were probably like teenagers around the time the original came out, and they would have, the last one was what, 10 years ago? Something like that?
The last one was, 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll get the original in some format, or maybe a mashup of both. That's
my guess. There's too much of what the Multiverse Saga has been hinting out currently that points to 2015 Secret Wars. But if the Russos are in love with the 1984 Secret Wars, it's got to be a combination of both. That's my theory.
Yeah.
Which I think would be easy enough to do, but we can sort of dive into that a little bit later.
Yeah. And I think so. I guess to get around to your question finally, why does it have me riled up? It's because it's an easy out. It feels like, you can tell from the crowd's reaction to Robert Downey Jr. how easy an out it was. They know if we put Robert Downey Jr. on stage as anyone for any reason coming back into the MCU, people are going to be thrilled.
And I feel like, at least from like my reaction, just like watching the videos. So there are videos you can find on the internet of Robert Downey Jr. on stage in a makeshift Doom costume with a mask on. They talk about revealing the Doom actor. He walks out on stage, takes the hood off, takes the mask off, and it's him. And it's like, you get so caught up in like the crowd losing their shit that it's like, oh my god, this is great. And then you stop and think and go, wait, what is it? What the fuck just happened? And then from there, you're just kind of like spinning.
And to be fair, he also did put on the Tony Stark sunglasses while he was still in the outfit, and did the whole Tony Stark raising his arms up when he like announced he was Iron Man thing.
I feel like that's just RDJ soaking up crowd reaction. Like I feel like
it could be, but it was weird to see like him look like Tony Stark with the glasses on in the Doom outfit. I don't know. It was strange, but there's the possibility as well. I don't know how familiar you are with the storyline, but there is a storyline where Doom kind of mind controls Tony into becoming Doom.
Oh, okay.
Um, maybe that's a thing that happens. It's a mind-controlled version of Tony from another universe that thinks he's Victor Von Doom. But we also know that people can look different in different universes. We've seen John Krasinski as, Mr. Fantastic, and we know that Pedro Pascal is going to be the Mr. Fantastic. So there's other proof of that we have as well, but that's just the first one came to mind. So we have that example where people can be wholly different people within universes. So I don't know. Are they going to have it be a version of Stark that got turned into Doom, or an evil version of Stark that became Doom? Or is it just going to be that the Doom from the universe he comes from happens to look like Tony Stark?
Yeah, so I want to get to all the stuff you're just talking about, but before we do, I just want to spin back to I guess like my reaction to the whole thing, because I'm on the same page as you. Right now, today, I don't like the casting. If they were going to do Doom, I really wanted somebody else. Just give me a new. It had to have been a high profile actor. I think that's the only way you're gonna that big of a villain. You have to have somebody high profile, well known actor to take over the role. I think that's probably would have been more fun to get somebody into the MCU that hasn't been there before.
Not Toby Kebbell.
Yes. I seen a lot of people. I saw some people talking about Javier Bardem, and I was like, that would have been fucking great too.
I like that.
But this, to me, and I think you pretty much said it too, this feels like a creative Hail Mary that reeks of a desperate pivot away from Kang. And I hate that it feels that way. I really wanted to be excited for these movies. I thought the Kang Dynasty was actually a really cool idea, and they're already putting the breadcrumbs there for that. And as far as I can tell, they're still there. So the fact that all this stuff's just going to kind of be cut short, and they're probably never going to mention Kang ever again, just feels really fucking weird.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
You don't think they'd bring Kang up at all, ever again?
No, I absolutely think that they will eventually come back to it.
But I mean, like, in this multiverse saga. Because, like, the first half of this, first 2/3,
has been very Kang-focused.
Yeah.
I
really wanted them to just stick to their guns, stick with Kang, just recast him, which seems like the easiest out.
Well, yeah, because we already know people look differently. Just bring Terrence Howard back and have him say, it's me, deal with it.
Yeah, who cares? Just, something like that. But to me, felt like that would have been the way to just go. And because they're pulling out what's seeming to be all the stops and bringing back like these surefire bets of RDJ and the Russos, who were involved in some of the biggest Marvel movies ever. It just feels like they're really trying to cash in on, okay, we know this works, figure it out.
And don't get me wrong, I get it. They're panicking because their whole plan got screwed.
Yeah.
And this was an easy out.
So when it's all said and done, maybe this all makes sense and they find a way to fix it and watching it as a whole. And I've said this before, because I know, like, even with the multiverse saga now, it's hard to figure out where stuff's connecting. There's threads that they've left open and not done anything with, and characters that seem like they're just sitting on the sidelines, not doing anything. Like, there's things that need to happen to make it feel cohesive, and we probably won't get that until the phase is over.
Yeah.
But this already feels like a massive pivot that it seems like it's going to be even harder to make everything make sense in the multiverse saga as a whole. I mean, I'm still, to your point, I think what you said too is I trust Kevin Feige, I trust the Russos, I trust RDJ, that they wouldn't be doing this just to do this, even though it feels that way. I am trying to hold out hope for like a first trailer to see if that finally gets me hyped, but right now I'm more cautious and pessimistic about it than maybe I should be.
Well, that's the thing, is I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I feel like the same way you are, where it's like, yes, we've got the Russos doing this film. Yes, it's Robert Downey Jr. doing this. Everything about this in any other scenario would be amazing.
Yeah.
If it was, like, honestly, if you think about it, like, if the whole Kang thing had been resolved already, but the multiverse was still going on, I feel like this comes off entirely differently.
Yeah, I would agree.
And, if they were going to do this big of a reveal, they were going to go to this length and throw what I'm assuming is quite a bag at Robert Downey Jr. to get him to come back. Because I'm sure he loves it, but I'm sure he's also very, very expensive for them at this point.
Yep.
Think about the difference in tone and what our conversation would be, just for an instant. If they take that same bag, and it would probably take that or more to accomplish this and get the person I have in mind to agree, Same thing happens. It's the Russos. Still the Russos. I have no problem with them bringing them back. They're directors. That's 100% okay with that. But that reveal, that mask comes off, and it's Daniel Day-Lewis instead.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, the bag they would have to throw at him to get him to do a comic book movie is probably 20% of the profit.
Yeah.
But if they do that, think about the difference in tone. Because to me, that I think about, you're going to get somebody that's going to blow everyone away. You've got two actors in my mind that aren't in the MCU. Javier Bardem sounds amazing, but I don't think it gets the reaction from people. To me, the two you could get that reaction from that aren't in the MCU, you got Daniel Day-Lewis, because he doesn't do anything he does not think is going to be an absolute gem. And DiCaprio. You have Leo, who's not been in this yet, and honestly wouldn't be terrible as Doom either.
Yeah.
If you pull that off...
Not to interrupt you, one of the videos I had seen of the reveal of Robert Downey Jr. taking off the mask, it had... Again, somebody from their cell phone where they were sitting, looking at the stage, taking the video, and right before the mask pulls off, it's dead silence, and you hear somebody next to them go, Jared Leto.
Oh, God.
And then the mask comes off, and it's RDJ. But, for a split second, that dude was convinced it was going to be fucking Jared Leto as Dr. Doom.
You know what? I did not think there was something that would get me to stop watching MCU movies. That would have done it. I'd have been like, I don't care anymore. All right, good.
But anyway, sorry.
Thank God it wasn't that.
Yeah,
but no, I'm just thinking in my head, instead of it feeling desperate by bringing RDJ back to do this, DiCaprio or Daniel Day-Lewis would feel like they are taking a serious route to this instead of just doing an easy layup. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited to see that easy layup, and that proves that it's an easy layup, is that I'm critical of it, and I'm still fuck, I have to see this now. It's still working on me. I'm just upset that it is working.
Right.
I'm upset that
it's a love-hate relationship with this announcement, for sure, I think.
Yeah.
But kind of looping back to some of the other stuff you're talking about, so, and these, I'm going to kind of jumble probably 3 or 4 questions in this, so we'll try to dissect as we go. But again, you brought this up when we were talking about it, and I, again, went back to watch the video. They made it a point to say RDJ is playing Victor Von Doom. Now, is it going to be completely weird having a new character played by the same actor that was Tony Stark for 10 years? Just as an audience member that has no idea what the fuck's going on right now in the MCU, they go to see a movie that features Dr. Doom, and it's RDJ, are they just going to assume that's Tony Stark? How as an audience member, do you not get pulled out of focusing on a new character because you've been married to this one for 10 years? And even not just from an audience member, I almost feel like you have to make it a point in the movie that the characters themselves, if they ever see Victor Von Doom without his mask, they're going to think it's Tony Stark.
Yeah, they have to react. I mean,
yes. That's not something you can ignore.
Yeah. And I think that's something that'll have to happen. But to what extent? I mean, I think there's another easy layup of a moment where Peter...
That's the character I'm thinking of, too. Yep.
Yeah. Good old Peter Parker meets this version of Victor Von Doom that looks like Tony Stark and is very confused by it.
After he's gone through his whole grieving period to mourn Tony Stark and finally gotten past that.
Everybody.
Throw this wrench at him?
Them.
Yeah.
But, is Pepper going to have to see him? Is Happy? Is, of course, Peter, we just said, which of these characters are going to have to face down seeing him there?
Yeah.
And that has to be something that we deal with. We can't ignore that. This can't be something like, oh, he's Victor, and there is no, moment of shock and bewilderment, I guess is the best way to say it, for these characters we've seen for so long. I
just think they have to do a very good job from an audience member's perspective. You have to assume there's people that are going to see this movie that either haven't kept up with the MCU or saw a bunch of stuff through the Infinity Saga and just blacked out through here, and now the Avengers are coming back, so they're like, oh, let me go see an Avengers movie. And they're going to be completely lost. So this movie has to set the stage and explain how this works and why this makes sense. Because to your point, I think you said it earlier, the only way this makes sense to me right now is he is a variant of Tony Stark. Like, to me, that's the only way this works. But if they're calling him Victor Von Doom and not just Doctor Doom, this to me feels like a new character, not a variant of Tony Stark. Unless they want to do like semantics where it starts off he's Tony Stark and then renames himself Victor Von Doom for some stupid reason.
Well, like I had said, that we do have the precedent where, like, we have seen that John Krasinski was Reed Richards, and so is Pedro Pascal.
The difference there is that Krasinski didn't show up from another character 10 years before that he's played another character for 10 years. Same with Pedro. If either one of those people have been in the MCU playing a previous character for as long as RDJ did, and then they come back and show up as Reed Richards later on, that's fucking weird.
I'm not saying it's not weird. I'm saying the precedent is set for somebody to have a completely different appearance in different universes.
And I would buy that if they just wanted to recast. But because RDJ's been there before, this doesn't feel like yes, it is in layman's terms, yes, it's a recast. But there's so much added baggage there because he's been in the MCU for 10 years prior.
Well, and I think there's a world in which so let's say they do it, what you're saying, where it's a variant of Tony Stark. And I think there's a world in which Tony is born Tony, but his parents die much younger in life. His life kind of goes a different route, but he still has, his parents' wealth behind him. And he becomes Victor Von Doom because things in life turn properly, and you're saying he assumes the moniker. And, it's one of those things with the character, Victor Von Doom kind of has his own country that he is the king or monarch or whatever the hell you want to call it of. Mm-hmm. And perhaps that vast wealth and ability leads Tony to do that. And I don't know, there's a psychotic break at some point, which really is what happens to the character of Victor Von Doom anyways, to create what he becomes. And essentially we get, what if Iron Man was evil? Like, what if, in the Doom suit, it's essentially just Iron Man in the same tech that he creates, but, more powerful because he went through some kind of, in other words, like Tony Stark, but with powers also added as actual superpowers.
Well, I think the tagline that he was saying on stage for this panel was new mask, same task is what they were saying. So he's got the Von Doom mask, but he's still essentially trying to do the same thing probably Tony Stark was, which the only thing I can think of is like the suit of armor around the world. That Doom is
the Doom
trying
bots
to protect
would make sense of as opposed to the Ultron bots.
Right? Yeah, similar. And I think in the comics, Doom, it feels righteous, I think, to himself, but it's always for selfish reasons. He's trying to save the world or save humanity, but always do it in his way, his image. He doesn't give a shit about anybody else, and that's the problem with Doom.
Yeah, he's an authoritarian egomaniac.
Yeah.
Like that.
So, there's similarities there, which I think could be fun to see him play with, but yeah, I'm still on the fence. I'm definitely trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but right now I'm very, very pessimistic, I think, about this.
And I think we're going to have to be in this same spot until we actually see the movie. I don't think we're going to find out what the hell's really going on and all that until then. I don't think we're going to get given threads because I feel like they can't. They have to have that story of Doomsday mostly be his story and how it happens. They have to, say they're going to do their 2.5 hour movie again like they do for all the Avengers movies. And a solid 90 minutes of that has to explain to us what the hell happened and created this. We can't one-off this in a montage or one-off it in a 15-minute thing or some exposition or anything like that. We have to see it happen. This has to be the same rise as Tony Stark, but an evil villain arc instead.
I mean, I think Infinity War worked well enough as it did, too, because you do get that time with Thanos. Now, granted, some of his backstory is already figured out by the time you get to Infinity War, but you do spend a sizable amount of the movie with him and getting more of the backstory and why he's doing what he's doing and stuff like that. So if we get screen time like that for Doom in that movie, I think, yes, that will help.
Yeah. And I think, maybe you could get seeds of why he's going to arrive and what he's planning to do in the few movies we have leading up to then. Do we know how many movies are between this and Doomsday? I know we have 3 next year,
3.
And then
that's it. I think. I don't think there's anything else planned for 2026 that I can think of right now.
Okay, so then it would make sense.
It's just I think Cap, Thunderbolts, and Fantastic Four, and then Avengers.
So then it would make sense that obviously the Fantastic Four would give us some information about it, or a tease or something will happen there. Yeah. If we're going to get anything. If we're going to get anything, obviously, with it being Doom, that's where it makes the most sense to happen. In what manner, who knows? Because we don't know how they're going to go about this version of Doctor Doom. I think what would be interesting is if there's a different Doom in that movie. Yeah. If it happens to be that we see a Doctor Doom in that movie that isn't Robert Downey Jr., and they're just keeping that very much under wraps. Or if perhaps they are a Fantastic Four from a different timeline, from a different part of the multiverse, as opposed to the sacred timeline. If they're, if we're already in a different one.
Yeah, given just the way the setting of that movie is, that's my already gut reaction for Fantastic Four, is that it's a period piece somewhere else, or a timeline that feels like a period piece.
Are they maybe from the future?
Either, however you want to spin it. But
I'm just saying, we're seeing like time travel and stuff be possible in the universe as well. Obviously, maybe they're like Reed and his technology are going to be so advanced because he's from 200 years in the future, or something like that.
And I don't know if they confirmed the year that it was supposed to be like in the 60s or something, or if they just said it's a 60s vibe, or like that's the atmosphere of the world. I can't remember how specifically they said.
Okay. I missed that. I honestly haven't been keeping up with what they say about things. I've been trying to go in with less lately and try to have that help, which it really did with Deadpool, by the way. That was amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know if they actually did that on the panel from Saturday, if they talked about some of that vibe and stuff, but I think that was prior, like when the promotional posters and stuff started hitting and it looked retro. I think that was when they started talking about, at least like time year wise, or kind of the aesthetic and the vibe of what it was going for.
Okay.
And without looking it up offhand, I don't remember how specific they got with it, but I'm sure Josh will correct us later, because I know he'll listen and let us know when we fuck up.
Well, like I said, I'm just guessing. I don't have any information. You sound to have information, so my whole future thing, just disregard that. That's just nonsense.
I mean, I'm not saying that Reed won't have the tech to time travel, because that's Reed Richards. Like, even if it's a sort of a past movie in the 60s or something, I wouldn't put it past Reed to have the tech still that's futuristic. I mean, they're going to have a flying car that looks like if it's still in the 60s, so obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if, Deadpool is canon to the MCU at this point, I mean, I guess that's a question of whether, like, Deadpool 2 is canon or not. Because Cable time travels in Deadpool 2 and brings back the tech.
Right.
So, there's a possibility there for that being the entry in one way. Like, yeah, we have the Endgame time travel that was a different technology. Of course, that was, the Pym particle thing, which I still don't entirely understand, but I'm fine with it. I don't understand how the Pym particles allowed time travel. I get their timeline thing. I've come to terms with the time travel thing at this point, but I still don't understand the Pym particle technology that allowed it to happen.
Yeah, I can't ask questions right now. Move on.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, there's multiple possible entries for this, and what they decide to do with that could really mess with things. Who knows? I mean, it's all conjecture at this point as far as how we're going to get to the state of the Marvel universe where Robert Downey Jr. or Tony Stark becomes Von Doom.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be curious if we get any type of tease in Fantastic Four. That seems like the logical place to put it. To your point, if we actually do get another Doom in that movie, I think that would make me feel better about RDJ coming back as Doom just for like 2 movies. Like, fine, I'll just let that arc play out, whatever they want to do, fine. And then we'll get a proper, in sacred timeline Doom somewhere else or something like that. I'm cool with that. Because I also think like Doom's too important to just have him in 2 movies and that's it. Like, I'd like to see more of him after that, but I guess we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think so. What we're either getting here is information that Robert Downey Jr. is back for another long haul of movies because there's no way.
There's no way.
Right? Yeah, I can't see that being the case. Or they're gonna kill off Doom, or there's gonna be a different Doom.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like those are the 3 possibilities, and the second 2, the second and third, I would say are equally possible.
Yeah.
So, we get to watch him die on screen again, maybe. Yay.
All right, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Secret Wars stuff, which we already kind of went into, and we'll probably kind of maybe answer the same questions. But for the Secret Wars storylines, there are actually 3 Secret Wars stories in the comics. There's a Secret Wars from 1984, there's Secret Wars 2 in 1985, and then Secret Wars from 2015. The one from 1984 involves basically heroes and villains from across the Marvel Universe being forced to fight in a universe-saving battle orchestrated by the Beyonder. 1985 storyline, which is one I'm not really familiar with, but the Marvel Wiki was giving me a rundown, involves like the Beyonder trying to understand human life and eventually taking over, which again results in some other weird, crazy shit. That seems less likely.
It's not a very well-regarded series.
Because I don't remember hearing a lot about that one. The 2015 storyline is one that I think they've been hinting about, but that's a storyline involving the multiverse collapsing in itself until there's basically 2 left. And while the universe is collapsing, Doctor Doom basically siphons power from the Beyonders to save the universe, but he makes it in his image. So the remnants of the multiverses are found themselves on a battle world where Doom is a god and ruled all sections of the battle world. So I think, which is sort of what we talked about earlier, when we say that the Russos loved Secret Wars storyline, I assume they're referring to the 1984 one. 2015 storyline seems like what is happening in the MCU now, where the multiverses are crashing into each other. We've seen incursions in other movies, namely Multiverse of Madness. That is a big thing. So I guess we sort of already answered this question, but what type of story do you think we'll get? Will we get some sort of combination? And I think both of us are already saying yes. That seems to be the most logical guess for a storyline here.
I mean, I think as far as the stories go, they're obviously leaning into a lot of the story from the second one, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in the first one that is just going to be too cinematic to leave out. Like,
that's where Spider-Man gets the black suit.
Right. Spider-Man gets the black suit. You have, potentially another villain that shows up in Fantastic Four in Galactus, finding out that he's not as powerful as he thinks. Because the Beyonder is just kind of like, yeah, no, I could use you as a pawn too.
Oh, that's right. He was in the roster of villains for that storyline.
Yeah. And you have heroes having to fight each other again like Civil War, but this time not because they're actually angry at each other, because they're just being forced to by a being that is far more powerful than anything they've ever experienced. So I think there's some cinematic value to that storyline that could be a lot of fun to put on film. Whereas the story itself, I think, will lean more into the more recent one. I think we're going to get some snippets and scenes and cool shit like that from the older one, and most of the story from the new one.
And there are also, like, rampant rumors right now, I think, on the internet, where that we'll be seeing all sorts of past actors returning to Secret Wars, such as, like, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man or Hugh Jackman's Wolverine leading the team. I think these are all fucking bullshit, and these are just...
They're guessing.
Yeah, people are just like, I really want this to happen, and because we've seen these actors come back in other movies, they have to be coming back in Secret Wars. I think it's bullshit, but, I mean, do you think there's any chance any of these other people come back?
I mean, so here's the thing. I have to be careful about spoilers right now, and I'm going to be in my response.
Yeah, no Deadpool Wolverine stuff.
Yeah. So I would say there's possibilities that I think, you know what I mean, within this multiverse, do I think as they're closing things out, they're going to miss an opportunity to bring some people back for the last time while they have the multiverse open.
Yeah.
Where it's non-committal for them to do so. I think, yes, we'll see some of that. Do I think that we'll see, you know, specifically what they're talking about, Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire specifically? I that's really tough to say. I think maybe we get that. I think, you know, I mean, it's possible in my mind because that will sell tickets, and they know that will sell tickets. And the end goal with this is still to make money, and that's going to do it. But do I think you're going to get a whole, you know, roster of previous actors? No. Do I think you might see a little bit of that? Yes. Do I think they're going to take a leading role? No.
Yeah.
It would be very silly to have Tobey Maguire or Hugh Jackman take the leading role on this as characters that are getting kind of squeezed out by the multiverse storyline ending to where they're, you know, essentially going to have their sacred timeline as the only one left. And the whole timeline is fixed and there is just one. And we know that, you know, Tobey Maguire's not their Spider-Man. We already have our Spider-Man. We know who it is in the sacred timeline. We don't know who the Wolverine is in the sacred timeline, but let's be real about this. Hugh Jackman isn't actually Wolverine, and he ages, and he's already kind of aging to a point where it's like, how long could he continue the character anyways?
He's in the role until he's 90.
We said no spoilers. But I'd say, like, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him continue it. He is too damn good as Wolverine to not want to see him continue the role. But realistically, are they going to want someone his age to be one of the pillar characters of Marvel? Like, in Marvel, you really have Spider-Man and then Wolverine in terms of popularity. They are 1 and 2. Do you want that second pillar to be someone Hugh's age that you don't have as much time with going forward? Especially as a character who really isn't supposed to age. I don't know. So I think there's a possibility for something there that I would really love to see, which I'll talk to you about when we close this up. And I think, I don't know, man. I want to see some actors come back for one last hurrah, but really, like, which among them do I really want to see the most?
Well, let's face it, like, this movie's going to be bloated as it is. If they bring even just existing MCU characters into an Avengers movie that's Secret Wars. Like,
oh, absolutely.
They have enough plates spinning right now that you can fill that roster with what they got. I think it'd be fun to have some cameos, but...
That's what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about cameos. I'm not talking about full-on big parts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But a cameo for a few people would be interesting. For me, like, if I'm picking one cameo that I want to see happen in that movie, it's Nicolas Cage. Give me Johnny Blaze back, baby.
Yeah.
One last time, one last ride for good old Nick Cage in the MCU. Get him in there. He deserves it. We're not getting him in any other way at this point. I don't see an MCU role suiting Nicolas Cage. So I think that would be the most fun that we could have with it. But he already kind of had that moment with another movie recently, which is just still recent enough I don't want to spoil it, but
I still think these rumors are bullshit. I don't think there's much there. I mean, I think to your point, we could probably see some other characters. Kind of hoping it's not those two. I think there's other characters, like you said, that maybe we haven't touched that could be fun just to bring in for the hell of it. But I don't think they'll do two versions of the same character. So if
you don't think we'll see Spidey fight Spidey?
No, I don't think they already put Spider-Mans together in No Way Home, so I don't think they'd do it again for Secret Wars. I think that That was done too well and too recent that they wouldn't do that again. Is that's my 2 cents.
What about Hugh Jackman's Wolverine fighting whatever their planned future Wolverine is?
If they cast another Wolverine between now and then, I could see maybe getting Jackman in the movie and not the new Wolverine, and then saving the new Wolverine for after Secret War. Like, if they find a way to bring Jackman's Wolverine back, I could see him being the sacrificial character, like the one that saves the day at the end to sacrifice himself. And yeah, that's
the
just
end
what
of
Wolverine
Logan
does.
again.
Like that's what he does. That's the character. So, but yeah, to your point, it would be kind of repetitive given other movies that Wolverine has done. So would they do it again? I don't know, but that's the only way I see that working.
That's fair.
Because to your point, Jackman's, I don't think, going to continue the character post. Like, if they get him in Secret Wars, I can't see him doing more with the character after Secret Wars.
I don't see him being our permanent Wolverine again.
So if he's in it, I feel like he's got to go.
He's done this for 25 years now. So,
and really, you figure for a character that usually can't die, you want to stretch someone's powers and show them they're not fucking around. He's the first one to go in the movie.
That's true.
You want to set the stakes, kill off Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in the first 10 minutes of Secret Wars and see how people react to that movie.
I feel like the comics have done that a few times with Wolverine, where they either make him appear dead or actually dead to, like, up the ante.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't believe it. But, you know, between now and then, who the fuck knows? If they need to pivot another way and just try to get people, put butts in seats, I could see them pulling all the stops and dump trucks of money to different people, and see what they end up with. So, just quick little side note, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get any X-Men news from this Marvel panel. And, like, really no news at all, I think, on any upcoming Disney Plus shows. Now, the only thing I'm wondering is D23 is in, like, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're saving all that stuff for then, if they're going to start filling in a couple, like, gaps in between some of these movies or what else they have on the slate. I can't imagine they're going to talk about anything post Secret Wars yet. So if they're saving X-Men for after Secret Wars, and we're not going to get an X-Men movie until like 2028, Jesus Christ.
You know what? I honestly think they're building this era of the MCU for the next, we've got 3.5 years. Building that around the Fantastic Four, and it's something they can build it around, and the X-Men gives them something to build around in the future, and it also gives us kind of enough time away from the X-Men that Fox put forward that maybe people start to be ready for new X-Men again.
I mean, there is a year gap between Doomsday and Secret Wars. Right now, I don't think there's any movies in there. They could slide one in between.
They could. Yeah, we don't know what's coming in between the two.
Yeah. All right, any final thoughts? I think we went a little bit longer than we had planned to, but...
Yeah, given that, I would say no.
Okay. All right, yeah, that's where we're going to wrap this one. We tried to do a quick half hour, and it's been like 50 minutes, so we've already gone longer than we thought. But, there's a lot of meat here.
You get a couple of geeks pissed off and anxious about what's happening in the future of this stuff, and that's what happens. That's what happens.
But, all right, so stay tuned. This one, I will try to turn this around quickly, and then the next one we will probably do is Deadpool and Wolverine at some point, whether that's a week or 2 weeks, depending on, again, who we get, when we get to sit down and do it, who's seen the movie, and how quickly, but keep an eye out for that one. But that's it. If you've enjoyed the show, please support us, leave a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to give us a share on social media. You can follow or subscribe to the show on Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Amazon, Stitcher, and Google are dead, so if you find us there, you got to find us somewhere else now. Hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/BryGuySuperFriends, or just search Bry Guy Super Friends. We should be able to be found. You can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions, any of that stuff there. Email us, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com. I haven't checked it in like 5 years. If you've sent your questions there, I apologize. Hit us up on Twitter at BGSuperFriends. That I should be able to see. I still check that occasionally, even though I hate Twitter. You can follow me on Twitch, Jedi Bry Guy. It's Jedi with an I, Bry with a Y. Whenever we decide to do another live show, we will do it there. Or if I ever decide to start streaming some stuff, I owe everybody the BioShock playthrough that I have yet to finish. That will be done there. And that's it. On behalf of Mike and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.